Good afternoon, Oberon. It's me. Back again in what seems to be another pair of my pajamas. Because, you guys never come over at a decent time. But anyways, since I got a minute, I wanted to make a little video. Because there's stuff to talk about. There's just stuff to talk about. First off, though, let's start with story time. I did not change my opinion about marijuana in high school. My best friend did. And, in a nutshell, I had two high schools. One from, 5th grade all the way up till beginning of senior year, and then another high school that was just the end of senior year. So, anyways, at my first high school, where I made most of my friends, I gave a lot of people hell. It wasn't just at high school. My stepdad and my biological dad and, anybody else who smoked pot, I gave hell, right? Because I was raised that it was bad, and it was, an illegal substance. And as far as I was concerned, if either parent got caught with it, they'd get in trouble with the law, and custody shit would go on, and I didn't need the drama. So it was bad juju. Alcohol, cigarettes, marijuana, any hard drug, and sex. I was going to wait to have sex until I was married. But I didn't like any of it because it seemed that all the people that I wanted to spend time around was blowing me off because they wanted to get high. And I didn't. And so I'd get left by myself a lot. Or they'd go hang out with people I didn't think were very appropriate people to be hanging out with. And so my friends would ditch me a lot. So anyway, after I took my bong, anyways, yeah, they didn't like me much for a little while because I had a very big opinion about something I didn't know a whole lot about. And it caused a lot of arguments at home. It caused a lot of arguments at school. Caused a lot of arguments with my first boyfriend. It was just something I didn't approve of. And I had reasons why, but I kind of feel like looking at it now that I'm adult, they were kind of biased reasons why. Anyways, I went all through high school talking shit. I didn't smoke cigarettes in high school. I tried alcohol one time, made me sicker than a dog. Didn't much care for it, still don't. I'll drink, yes, but not a lot, not excessively. I'll have a glass of wine every once in a while. Take me to a party without my kid, and I might have 3 or 4 drinks, but I never get drunk enough to puke. I just get a little tipsy, and then I'm like, okay, night time. Anyways, back to the point. It caused a lot of, arguments between me and a lot of people. It stirred up a lot of drama all the time. Well, when I finally turned 18 my senior year, I figured, fuck it. They can't take me away from anyone anymore. I am my own person now. I am an adult now. According to U.S. citizenship, I am allowed to tell them where I want to live and, who I want to stay with. And the custody thing's got nothing to do with it. I'm not a minor anymore. They can't fight over me anymore. So I was like, cool. Everyone and their fucking dog and their mama and their cat and their fish and their friends are out here smoking pot. So I finally told them flat out, what's so special about it? The way you feel, the way you think, what you do, what's so special about it? Because all I've ever seen is people just go get high and then sit down and not do shit. Or they get stoned and they started acting like real stupid. And they're like, well, we can't really describe it a whole lot. And so I was like, all right, well then get me stoned. Show me what's so special about it, right? And most of them were like, no, because that makes you a hypocrite and so on and so forth. Like, we can't do that. You give us so much shit. We don't trust you. We don't believe you or whatever. They just didn't do it. So I was like, okay, cool. Whatever. We moved. I started hanging out with, like, these people were younger than me. It was one of my aunt's cousins and one of her cousins. So they're friends. They're, they were younger than me, still in school. I think the girl was 1 grade lower, and my best friend was in the same class. No. I don't remember. We were high schoolers. I was 18. I was the only 18-year-old that I was hanging out with at the time. So I get out there and I make friends with these people, or I'm trying to make friends with these people, and they start talking about smoking weed, and I used to, I tell them, I used to talk a bunch of shit about my friends at the old school because they were smoking pot and I didn't approve of it, and, we'd go rounds. And it's like, it's not something I approve of, but, I told them I'd smoke it with them to see what made it so special because I found out my mom smoked it finally she told me she tried it and it just wasn't for her. And that's when I was like, well, fuck. And the person who told me it was bad tried it once, so I might as well try it once. And they're like, okay, we can understand that. Don't knock it till you try it. You're not going to talk shit at me until you actually understand it. So I was like, cool. The next day we set out, got in the car, and they was all ready, man. They had it all packed. The bowl was set. They started passing. Took my first hit. Didn't feel nothing. Waited a little bit. Bowl came back. Took another hit. And by the way, they're helping me do this. Like, I look like a baby because, like, I have the pipe and I'm holding it so I can put it towards my mouth. But then they're lighting it. So that way, show me how it's done, I guess. Anyways, so they're bottle feeding me this and I'm hitting it. And I hit it pretty hard because I got myself coughing decent at one point. Didn't feel it. Got like 3 hits in and was like, guys, I don't feel any different. And they're like, well, fuck. Maybe you're just one of those people it doesn't affect. And I'm like, well, that fucking sucks. So we finish up our car ride. Head to class. I'm sitting there in forensic science on my computer, minding my own business, when all of a sudden, I just started making friends with this dude. Which, by the way, honey, I love you. I know you're Nene now, but you'll always be my Q. Like, I love and respect you. Please don't take it as disrespect. Right now, you were my Q. Anyways, he leans over and he taps me on the shoulder and goes, are you feeling okay? And I'm like, yeah, why? I feel fine. He goes, dude, you're moving really fucking slow. And I'm like, what? He goes, pick up your arm right now. And I pick up my arm, and sure as shit, I'm moving like this. Right? And he's like, so are you feeling okay? I'm like, I'm really heavy, man. Like, I just want to sit here and watch, like, TV. I don't want to move. He's like, really? How's your head feel? I'm like, my vision's a little foggy. Like, I'm looking through everything kind of like a jar, but fine. Why? He's like, because you're stoned as shit. I'm like, really? He's like, yeah. Look at me. And so I looked at him and he's like, oh yeah. You're sitting there looking at me like this. You're stoned. And I'm like, well, damn. So I email my other friend and I tell her I'm baked, and like we're sitting there. Our school's got this little email system set up on our computers so that way we can talk to the teachers and not have to use our personal ones. So we're sitting there sending each other emails back and forth, just cracking up, making jokes. And at some point, somebody brings up having the munchies, and I get a craving for chocolate chip cookies. Now, they have a snack machine at this school, and like our second period is called a break period, or was called a break period, and they just took us to this, like, where it was this big room where they sold snacks during concessions and stuff during games. But they take us in there, snack machine, pop machine, let us relax for an hour, and then we'd leave. Well, I didn't have any money this day for that snack machine, but I desperately wanted them chocolate chip cookies. So I'm begging them, please, like, somebody lend me $1.25. I'll bring it back tomorrow. I promise. I just forgot my wallet. I was in a hurry this morning. Nobody had enough. They had enough to get themselves a snack and a pop, but they didn't have enough to loan out. So I was like, fine, it's whatever. I don't need it, right? It's just sugar. And so I go to class. And I'm all by myself in this speech class because I'm the only one that really needs it, and this is my only free period. So this teacher didn't care if I worked on my computer or if I just sat and read my book. Or even sometimes I got away with working on homework from other classes because I was by myself. And I'm sitting there pretending like I'm reading my book, and all of a sudden the bell rings, and I'm like, cool. And she turns around and I hear a chair squeak. And then she goes, can you keep a secret? And I look up from my desk. I'm like, why? She's like, just yes or no. Can you keep a secret? I'm baked off my ass, you guys. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, cool. I got this tin of cookies at a teacher's meeting this morning. I don't like how they taste. I don't need the extra sugar. My ass, is big enough, thanks. But I want the tin. I have a bag here. It hasn't been used for anything. I just stuck it in my desk because I had it for some reason, and it's clean. If I put them in here and give them to you, can you not tell the other students so I don't get in trouble? By the way, this was years ago, so she can't get in trouble now. And I'm like, okay, sure. What kind are they? She goes, chocolate chip. Man, it was like a gift from the gods. I was like, I heard the Hallelujah chorus. I was like, chocolate chip cookies? Hell yeah. I'm down. I'm game. She poured them in the baggie and gave them to me. She goes, go ahead and nibble on them now so you don't get busted with them later. I'm like, cool beans. I sat there pretending to read my book, baked off my ass. I actually pulled out my computer and put a headphone in and was sitting there doing stuff on my computer at that point because I was like, fuck it, I'm in a good mood. I got cookies. And so, yeah, I finished my high with some chocolate chip cookies. I walked out of there happy as a shithouse rat. That end of class hit. I put everything in there and I walked out smiling. And my friend looks at me and goes, what the hell are you grinning for? I'm like, nothing. She goes, oh, you still baked? I'm like, no, I'm sober. She goes, so then what are you grinning for, stupid? I'm like, she gave me chocolate chip cookies. And they're like, bullshit. And I looked at him because this is her other friend come walking up with her. They were in the same class. My best friend, he come walking up with her. And they're like, bullshit. And so I stopped at my locker, which was right next to the door to her classroom. And I pulled out the cookies and I showed them and I shoved them in my locker and locked it and went to class. They cracked up laughing. That wasn't the only time they loved me with getting high on food. There was another time when I pulled a steak out of my pocket that they still probably tell people about. I'll tell you that story later though. But yeah, that was the first time I ever got high. It snuck up on me, gave me the munchies for chocolate chip cookies, and then the universe gave me chocolate chip cookies, and I was happy. So then every once in a while, this kid was like, hey, you want to go smoke with me at lunch? Hang out with me and my mom. I was like, okay, cool. And slowly he became my best friend. He's the one that changed my mind about pot. I didn't smoke it a lot after graduation because I took off trying to find my life and didn't really feel like it. Maybe a couple times with my sister every now and then, but it was like twice a year. I didn't actually start smoking legitimately until I got my license from my doctor last year. That's when I started smoking daily because, see, the thing is I'm on antidepressants, which is from my depression from a long ass time ago. I'm not ashamed of it. I'm not ashamed of taking the meds. They help. My doctor says even right now, if I tried stopping the antidepressants, the chemo would probably put me right back on them. So he's just like, they're helping you stay up and active and happy. And if I miss a dose, boy, do we know. So at that time, when I started smoking 3 times a day, I was trying to take other meds 3 times a day, and I was getting tired of it, and coming off of them wasn't very easy. Not because of like addiction purposes, but because if I did try to come off of these meds, it seriously fucked with my body. I just wasn't ready for taking them off. Like, I only take meds twice a day now because we managed to cut the middleman out, but at that point we couldn't. And everyone was telling me, try to, be careful. Don't become addicted to the marijuana. Don't become addicted to running away from your problems by using the high. Like, because, the first time you get high, it's different than when you've already got a resistance built up. And it's the high that you feel regularly. Like, I'm sure every stoner knows what I'm talking about right now. Like, that first few days where you're stupid high because you're not used to it, and then one day, bam, you're high and you're sitting here thinking, I don't feel the same. It's just not as funny anymore. But you're still stoned and enjoying yourself. Every stoner gets it. You got to build that tolerance first, but I didn't have it. And so it wasn't a regular thing, and people were afraid that I was using it to run away from my issues, and I kept telling them I'm fine. The only time I smoke is when I'm in pain. And, like, I set up Mary Poppins purses. So when I set up different ways for my friends to enjoy getting stoned with me, I carried, little multiple ways for my friends to get stoned with me. A gummy here, there, maybe a little bit of wax in this jar, a little bit of herb in that jar, whatever. They were trying to tell me I was getting addicted to the smoke, and I was like, there are worse things I could be addicted to right now. Like, my painkillers are something I could be addicted to right now. Like, technically, my body is addicted to it, because if I miss my painkillers at any point, I get withdrawals. So it's like, I could mentally be addicted to those and popping those like fucking, like Greg House, walking around with a cane and a fucking painkiller in my hand. And you're worried about how much pot I smoke? No. I started smoking 3 times a day and built my tolerance up and was like, all right, now listen here. I can understand my doctor's not wanting me to smoke because that's bad, just like the cigarettes. Got you. I cut that down to 1 or 2 a day. But my edibles are my business. If I'm stoned, that's my personal business. You can't tell me how to regulate my marijuana because it's my business. It's been given to me as a medication legally. It is my choice to decide how I use it. Period. And so that's when I was like, fuck it. I just started smoking whenever I wanted to smoke. My mood changed. I was less aggressive. I've been more chill about everything. I've been more positive about changes in my life. Eating healthier has been easier, you guys. Here's a positive piece of information before I tell you the bad news. I lost 10 pounds between January 1st and today because I stopped eating so much sugar. I allow myself candy on movie night if I feel like it. Sometimes I get like ice cream or a donut, or I don't eat anything but the popcorn or soda. And the only time I drink soda is when I feel like sharing it with my mom because I try not to drink them by myself. So I've lost 10 pounds from the last time I was weighed at the doctor's office to my last appointment, like a couple weeks ago. So that's been like a couple months. I'm really proud of myself. I can feel the difference because I don't hurt as bad. I'm still sore, but I don't hurt as bad. But yeah, so that's how I got started on the marijuana. And I gotta tell you, it helps. It gives me an appetite when I don't want to eat, which is most of the time. Like, I shit you not, the only reason I actually use the weed, aside from helping with my mood, is because I want to eat. Because I know at some point I have to, or I start getting dizzy because I'm running on empty. Like, if I'm high, I'm cool. I don't realize I'm not hungry. And eventually, as I come down, I get the munchies and my stomach starts making weird noises. But otherwise, I'll wake up and I could go from like the time I wake up around 7 or 8 o'clock to take my meds until 3 or 4 in the afternoon before I start trying to pass out, to realize I haven't eaten anything and I don't have any fuel in my body. I've done nothing but drink water all morning. So I smoke a bowl so I can eat. But people weren't seeing it that way in the beginning, so I wanted to tell you guys my first time being high. So that way I could kind of gradually work into that. Also, it gives you a funny story and a couple of interesting, maybe funny segues in between. Because the whole purpose of my recording today was to tell you guys that I'm not gonna cry. Hold on. Because I'm fine. I need a legitimate reason to collect my thoughts a minute and get my vocals back. I got a PET scan that showed I have some new cancer development in my lower spine. It's not very big because he says we wouldn't have picked it up on like a regular CAT scan, but because this is a PET scan, they're injecting my body with sugar, like a sugar type gel. And what that does is the cancer cells go after the sugar in the serum or whatever, and it makes them light up. And so that's how come they're able to see it, even though it's not big enough to detect on a CAT scan. So it's not large, but it is starting to regrow in more than one vertebrae in my lower back, like right around the top of my ass crack into my sacrum, which is my tailbone, and maybe 1 or 2 above that. And so he was initially, my doctor wanted to change my chemo from what I'm on, which is an IV chemo once every 3 weeks, to another oral chemo, which I think was daily, but I faded out after a minute, so I'd have to ask my mom or my doctor next week about the details. But the point is, in the beginning, he wanted to change my chemo, which I've gotten a year, like all of 2020, I had no problems with my cancer and this chemo. Once I stopped puking everywhere because I stopped eating the bad stuff for me and only ate like vegetables and proteins, fish, chicken, occasionally beef and pork if I really felt up to it. Otherwise, they didn't taste right. No real bread substances, no more sugary sweet candies or fat cakes. I cut back all my soda. I've been drinking mostly water because I don't really care for juice. Like, once I cut all the sugar out, I stopped getting sick all the time. Like I said, I even lost weight because I'm not choking sugar into my system to try and function anymore. I'm finding healthy ways to keep my body going. But I had all of last year with no problems. I wasn't hospitalized for anything, no blood clots. Well, that's a lie. I was hospitalized because I had a fever from the carboplatin, which is the chemo they took me off of. But that was because the chemo wasn't necessary anymore. and the COVID was just starting to become an outbreak. So they had to hold me for quarantine just in case I had it and didn't know. But I didn't have it. I came out negative and they sent me home. But still, I wasn't hospitalized for any other reason. I didn't have to be rushed to Colorado Springs by my mom or the ambulance or for any reason. There was no scares. I got to stay at home in the quarantine and just be at home. Learn how to interact with my kid again because, it tore a rift between us, me getting sick. Like, not only do I not have a very good memory of 2018, a lot of it is bad memories from like some of the events I had to go through. Some of it's PTSD from the nights that I had to deal with her by myself. Like, there's issues with that year. So it gave me an entire year to learn how to function with my family again. Like, last year was great for us. We were good. So I'm hoping this year is great for us. But it starts off kind of rocky because he wants to change my chemo. And so I'm afraid, because what that does is it cuts down to that chemo only having a 6-month shelf life before this cancer's supposed to start changing again. And this chemo that I'm on has an average of about 1.5 years, 2 years. So it's like, I've only gotten a year out of this. I want more time. Because it scares me, you guys. This cancer can go from just a tiny lump on a CAT scan that nobody cares about to stage 4 cancer in a matter of weeks, where it's everywhere. So it's like, what happens when the chemo stops working? We move on to the next one, yeah, but they only have an average of so long working, and sometimes I feel like I don't even get that. My nose is gonna drip. Because, like, the first one they started me on, the alectinib, I managed to get at least a year out of, I think. Before we moved on, they started me on the alectinib July of 2018. I changed to the other one. I changed to the other one. I don't even remember what it's called, the lorlatinib, in like November of 2020. Not even, it was November of 2019. There we go. Not 2020, of 2019. Because we took me off all of November so I don't wipe snot on my face. So that way I could do radiation in December and start this chemo that I'm on in January of 2020. So I got a year and a couple months on my first chemo. My second chemo, I only got 8 weeks. The first 4 weeks where I flipped shit, and then the week off in between to get it out of my system, and then the last 4 weeks where I flipped my shit. Before he was like, just pull it all. She's going into radiation. She can't have it in her system anyways. So I'm at this point freaking out. And he's talking about changing all my stuff. At the end of it all, I asked him, I said, what happens if we choose to do radiation? He's like, you know what? I don't know. What are you thinking? I said, when the alectinib first started, not working, and we started to see development up in between my T12 spot, which is right back, between the shoulders, and up at the base of my neck, in between my shoulders a little bit. They treated that whole section, which is why I have esophagus troubles. Holy cow, my nose. Because they said I could get a little bit of damage from the laser going straight through my body and hitting my esophagus. So I got kind of like a sunburn on the inside of my esophagus, and so now food gets stuck occasionally. We'll talk about that later. But I said we did the radiation and we didn't see any new development again until December. And we did the radiation like over the summer. Like, I want to say mid-July, early August, right before school started. And he was like, that's a good idea, because it bought me a little more time to make sure that it was actually truly starting to regrow and not just something the chemo hadn't, gotten around to really getting yet. So he told me at the end of this doctor's appointment, he'd talk to my radiologist to see if it was possible. We left kind of scared but hopeful. We got a call about 2 hours later from my doctor saying that the radiologist said it was a go. He said it looks like it would work. They're not very big spots, and it's not a very big section to have to treat. So my actual radiologist has moved to Cherry Creek. He gave us a referral to a new one, and I get to meet her on Thursday to talk about how much treatment is going to be needed, where the exact location for treatment is, and then I have another appointment to try and help find lodging in Colorado Springs, which I have a place to stay. So, I'm not too terribly worried, but we also want to make this a bit more fun, I guess, of an experience for Violet, because we're hoping to get it on her spring break so she doesn't have to worry about her school. And we don't want her to have a boring one, so it's like, even though I'm not going to be feeling good, I still want her to be able to go out with Grandma and Papa and, like, be able to have a blast, like, at the hotel we're staying at or something, or we can find some way for me to have an enjoyment with them. I have a wheelchair, for God's sakes. If I need it, I'll use it. But either way, we're having fun instead of this being another shitty radiation treatment. But, yeah, that's a thing that's going on now that I needed to put out there, which I've gotten your attention for 32 minutes. Anyone still watching, I appreciate it. Because if I didn't lose you with my lame-ass story, I don't know if you want to see me bawling my eyes out. But I appreciate it, and I love you. But I'm thinking, fingers crossed, only one set because 2 is bad luck, that I'll get to be able to take my camera that I set up with my little tripod and maybe video them doing my treatment. Like, I don't know if I'd have to do it through their point of view in the glass or if I could sit it on the counter and do it from the counter. Because I know how this place is set up. I've been to the same place before. My doctor left, but I'm using the same radiation people, like crew. So I'm not real concerned or worried about how it's going to work or not. What I want to know is if I can record my personal session for you guys to see what radiation looks like. Because that's a whole different process. You'd think it'd be this long old period, but they really only hold me in there for like maybe 5 minutes. I wish I had tissue. I have one. But it's not good enough. I'm going to have to go soon, you guys, because I can't get my nose to stop. But if they let me, then I will probably do the entire week's video recordings. Not like of every session that I have to do, but maybe a couple sessions and some of the stuff that we do in between to, show how we're still having fun while doing it, kind of thing. And you'll get to see what radiation looks like. Especially with it being small and specific, because like I said, they lay me on a table and use a laser that goes through the table even, and it just rotates around the table and treats me somehow that way. So it's an experience. Plus, I can show you guys the ceiling, because right above me during this whole treatment, they have like those panels with the clouds, and they have cartoon characters and like hidden objects stickers, like lost in the picture of the panel. So it gives us stuff to look for while we're laying there. So I will stop wasting your guys' time since we're at 36 minutes almost, and tell you guys that I'm still up and kicking, and with hope and a lot of luck and a lot of prayers and love and good vibes, this radiation will buy me more time. So go fall in love with your life again. I love you guys. Bye.